Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another version of Zoom into Wine, LearnAboutWine.com. We come together tonight to present the Rhône Valley, and we've got a great lineup of supporting cast, wines, and a really cool audience all over the place that are joining us to discuss great wine like we do every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. My name is Ian Blackburn, and I'm very appreciative that you're here with me. I still have a few more people clicking in, so we'll just allow things to settle down. I hope you all got your wines okay. I discovered mine were in the refrigerator just a little longer than I would have liked. I'm using them out of the jars. It's many of you guys got as well. Some of mine, though, we didn't have enough to fill. We did sell this out. That's the good news. The bad news is I got a little shorted on a couple of mine. They're like half jars. I got the last pour too. But we do a lot of good work around here getting the kits out. Sometimes they do get kicked by UPS. They do a really good job in general, but a couple of people did get impacted tonight. And to those people, I say, hey, everything, all's well in the world. If that kit gets to you tomorrow, you'll be able to watch this Zoom. Even tonight, it's being broadcast right now and at our website, Zoom into Wine, on Facebook, our Facebook page, Zoom into Wine, and then we'll record this session, and we will be able to send out the link to watch the recording as well. So a lot of options for you. You don't actually have to be here right now live, and many of our sessions I've had to record in advance and play them, just because of the way the world works. Not every Wednesday at 7 o'clock can I be sitting right here. But last couple of people coming on board, it's a pretty big house. Didn't sell out the capacity of the Zoom, but we did sell all of our wine that we had for the kits. And we sent wine, gosh, everywhere. So some people are zooming in tonight from very far away, and some people are right down the street from me. So welcome to everybody. Again, my name is Ian Blackburn, and we do this every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, getting great wine people together to talk about wine, and I'm ready to go. So we're going to go right into it. And this is our program tonight about the Rhône Valley. Of course, we're in the southern part of France, and we are going to be tasting a number of wines. In fact, what I'm going to do just to show you, I went to my friend's blog called The Wine Cellar Insider by Jeff Levy. He lives here in Los Angeles. And there are 27 grape varieties that are considered Rhône grape varieties. The northern Rhône is dominated by Syrah. The southern Rhône is dominated by Grenache. And that's really kind of the most important part of the varietal mixture. So as we're talking through these wines, we're going to start off with a couple of wines from the southern Rhône, and then we'll head up to the northern Rhône later in the program. So without any further, let's begin our program. Our first wine number one tonight, is from Tavel. And I think some of you that have bottle kits may be wanting to know what is next. So I'll give that to you right now. It's going to go, wine number 2 is the Mosgron Plagnol. Wine number 3, we are drinking the Gingondas Domaine Raspail. Chris, Raspail?
Raspail.
That's easy for you to say. Raspail.
Hi.
Got it. Wine 4, Domaine Corbis. And we're going to be having a Cornas La Saborette. And then we will go to wine number 5, Blue Telegraph, Telegram, Chateauneuf de Pape. And wine number 6, Hermitage with Jean-Louis Chave. Now, my good friend Andrew works for Kermit Lynch. They just returned from Europe, and he went straight into vacation. So he joined me in Nantucket to talk about our first wine, the Tavel. Now we're going to go to my friend Andrew Major, who's actually on vacation on the East Coast, taking time away from Nantucket. Andrew, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I wouldn't miss this. So happy to be here.
Well, dude, I really appreciate you helping us out and teaching us a little bit about this beautiful Tavel Rosé.
Yes.
And Andrew, you work for Kermit Lynch.
Yes, worked for Kermit Lynch for 2 years here in Los Angeles, or there in Los Angeles.
How do we pronounce the name of our Tavel producer today?
It's Trink Evidel. So Trink Evidel.
And we're tasting the 2021, which as a vintage third, look, because it was a pretty severe winter or wet year, pretty rainy, a lot of hail, a lot of frost, a lot of issues. Now the wines that come out of 2021 are probably smaller productions and probably higher selections. So we're not saying run from 21 at all, but just know that the vintage will probably be here just for a moment and then it'll be gone because it was such a small year. And 2022 is kind of a big year.
It's a big year, but I will say with 2021, a lot of us are actually running towards it because I was just there doing a 2-week trip with the staff, and the further south we got, the better the 21s got. And actually in the South, it even though it's known as a cooler vintage, things were ripened phenolically. It's really one of the best vintages in the South of France, and winemaker after winemaker were telling us like 21 is our favorite vintage in memory, or one of the favorite vintages that they've had in a long time. And we totally agree. The further south we got, the better the 21s got. And so I think, with this 21 and a lot of others, it really shows.
Let's get into Tavel, and we're focused on the Rhône Valley, so we're going to look at different parts of the Rhône map, and it is an iconic rosé dominated appellation. They do make other wines than rosé.
They do, but it's the only AOC that that's made up entirely of rosé. So if you make a white or a red, you can't put Tavel on it. Only the rosés. They started and got their AOC status back in 1936, which is exactly when this chateau started up in 36.
Very cool. And it maintains is it still in its 4th generation?
Yes, Guillaume de Moulin is the winemaker, 4th generation. And it's about 32 hectares of fruit. It's all hillside. You see the color of Tavel rosés, they're typically darker and more red. And to a lot of American drinkers, they think that means sweet, that the wine is going to be sugary, and we don't like that. But in fact, it's dry, bone dry. Almost all the rosé that comes out of Tavel is bone dry.
Yeah, it's kind of like an in-betweener too, because these rosés are kind of built to age and take on some personality, and so you don't have to be in a rush to drink a Tavel. I wouldn't say you don't want to put them away for 20 years, but they are very capable of improving over 2 to 5.
Yeah, and this place historically, the wines are famous for aging because it's a very Mediterranean climate, which allows wines to get the structure in the body and the ripeness that requires long-term aging. they're getting a lot of sunshine and a lot of warmth without being super, super hot. And then the nights are pretty cool down there. And that just allows for a longer hang time.
So you've got vine age, you've got sustainable practices, you've got, these, like, almost see the vine spacing here. It's untrained, untrellised. These are thriving vines that are allowed to craft their berries, and they do so in this kind of old vine notion. And you see even here where the new vines are coming in, and they're starting to put in a little bit more modern vineyard practices. But small operation, family operation.
Yep. Small operation. I'm trying to remember the case amount, but it's not an overly large amount that's made.
Yeah, I don't see this wine in a ton of places, but you probably will find it in great French bistros, French focused wine stores. There are many Tavel producers. This is listed in the upper echelon, and 93 points is no slouchy score. The grape varieties here, we're looking at Grenache, and we're going to talk a lot today about Grenache based wines. And another kind of amazing feature for this wine, I loved it. There's a really great price on the product, and we've taken a good position on it. I don't think for less than $20 you can get a better rosé. I don't think you can get a more classic rosé, and I'm talking about rosé of the world. Correct me if I'm wrong here. This wine is 100% direct to press, or is there a Signé involved?
It's 100% direct press. It ferments in cold tanks for around 20 days in stainless steel, and then it ages for about 6 to 9 months, and then it's released in bottle. It doesn't go through any malolactic fermentation, so that's gonna preserve the freshness and acidity that you hope to get from a rosé.
Tavel's, typically range between $25 and $45. Yeah. So I think it's a great value proposition. I love it, and thank you for sharing it with us today.
Thanks for making it part of your lineup.
Excellent. Getting some good comments there. Food wine pairing wise, this wine's got quite a bit of application because of the acidity.
Yeah, we're gonna
the structure, even the color, the weight of this rosé. It has more body than a lot of Provence rosés, and so you could really lean into this and pair it with some more aggressive flavors. It drinks a little bit more like a light red wine, and I think that having it around the pool is a great idea too. And that's often what we're doing with rosé in today's world. Alcohol pretty modest. I believe it's in the 13% range. Shouldn't be 13.5, it says. Thank you, George. And yeah, it's definitely something you're growing to make this wine. This is not a byproduct of a bigger wine or anything else. This is exactly what they do in Tavel, and a really noble and early rosé to the wine world. This is kind of the early standard, if you will, for rosé. So yeah, $17, and your discount tonight, your discount code that we gave you guys, only if you bought this Zoom with us, works on the prices, whether it says it's going to work or not, but only for 24 hours. You get 10% off on every single wine tonight. It's a new kind of incentive we're giving you, is that for the Stars events, we're going to give you 10% off on all the wines, even if they're allocated, etc. if we have them, we want to sell them on tonight's event and move the needle for some of these producers. So we're going to give you a little extra, another 10% off the $16.95. All right. Wine number 2. Busy time of the year. So a lot of my producers are in Europe. And so sometimes we work with the importers, but this time even our importer was in Europe. So he recorded with me before he left for Europe. So we're going to now learn about wine number 2, our Moscron Plagnol, which has the distinction of being the biggest selling wine ever in our wine store as far as total cases, etc. We sold a mountain of this wine. It is in a new vintage now, 2019. I'm not going to say I like it better. The 17 is what we were crushing it with. But in general, 19 is considered to be a better vintage. And I think this wine is exactly what I saw in 17. It's a great value. And we're starting this program off with a couple of values, and that'll change soon enough.
Next up in our exploration of the Rhône Valley, we're now going to spend a moment with Hiram Simon, who is the owner and founder of WineWise, an importer of our next wine, a favorite around here, Hiram, the Moscron Plagnol. It has been a champion in the store. Every year I'm excited to get the new release and to compare it to the last. I think the wines are super exciting, and it's really fun to see what's happening with this particular brand. How are you today?
I'm very well and very happy to be here to talk about what is really one of my absolute favorite producers in our portfolio, Ma Grand Plagnol. I started WineWise in 1989, and this estate is one of 3 that remain in our portfolio from those first days. So it's a very profound and long-lasting connection that we have. It's a fairly reliable gauge of an estate's quality, I think, is if they have their origins in North Africa. The Marais family actually originally came from the Languedoc back in the 18th century, where they were also involved in wine. And they, before they set up shop in the Costières de Nîmes, they also had and have a property in the Médoc called Château Puy-Castéra. So they're very, very well, deeply entrenched in French wine history. Roger ran the estate. His wife was a professor of ancient Greek at the University of Montpellier. They were very, very urbane, dignified, old-fashioned. Oh, I should mention one important thing, which is it's much better known by another name, which is Madé Bressade. If you to look for them at the internet, that's where you would find them. We have the Ma Grand Plagnol label because the Bressade label was taken by another importer. But the Ma Grand Plagnol is actually the name of the family house on the estate. But the estate is a large estate, all in one piece, basically, in this area, in the Gare.
We have a couple of pictures actually from the Ma de Bressade website, in particular the soils of this area of the Rhône, which has this massive, forceful, wide river that just carries an immense amount of water through southern France and has literally removed so much topsoil that you've got these massive round stones everywhere that have probably traveled hundreds of miles. And they've got these corners, they call them galets. And it's really a fascinating part of the entire Rhône Valley. And it's really great. With one of the great wineries there calls their wine the blood of the stones. And I think that's just a great way to think of it. And here's a look at their Shea, very traditional. concrete, stainless steel. It's this is like every great small producer looks just like this.
Yeah. They do have a barrel cellar too, because they age a lot of their wines in barrique. But that was indeed the main fermentation and settling area that you just saw in the cellars. And these are some of Cyril's many children that you can see he puts to good use at harvest time, and they seem to be having a very good time, I must say, which will contribute hugely to the wine's quality. Now, this is a fantastic picture because it really does convey to you the singular quality of these vineyards. You can travel, the Costières de Nîmes is a huge area, and it actually is not at all uniform in the quality of the wine, the style of the wines it makes. But you could see many vineyards that have not nary a pebble in them. But when you go to their estate, it's just covered with these galets, and it really is a hallmark of quality.
Yeah, we'll get to our wine now. The 2000 and where are we? 19? Is that what we're tasting today?
Yes.
2019. Wow. So we had 17, 18. Now we're 19, which is a blend of Grenache, Syrah, and Cinsault.
This particular bottling, the Cuvée Tradition, is fundamentally a blend of roughly equal parts of Grenache and Syrah. The proportions vary year by year according to the yields of the vineyards, but those are the two building blocks of the wine. And as I say, the Cinsault is included to add to the freshness because it has better acidity than these other grapes.
Well, in the glass, we'll taste now with our friends. But this wine always has this wonderful, saturated, rich, dense, wonderful mouthfeel. And I really enjoy the fact that this is a wine that we are able to sell for less than $15 a bottle. Family made and operated. I don't know how you do it, getting a wine of this quality all the way over here. But that's what I we all sit around in the wine business and it's easy to buy expensive wines that you love, but to find something of value that you could open at any occasion. And I have opened this wine next to wines 10 times its price, and you can find really good things to say about this particular producer at every level.
Yeah, they give you a lot of wine for the money, and it defies logic that the wines are so cheap. But they're just reasonable people. They're not trying to become rich. They're just doing a really honest job, and that's the reason why 34 years later we're still friends and still collaborating.
Thank you so much for the info. Thanks for being such a great supporter and businessman, and we really enjoy working with you and your company.
Thank you, Ian. The feeling is entirely mutual, and we really appreciate the fact that you go out on a limb to show the world wines that otherwise it might ignore at its peril or its loss.
Fun to find little treasures like this. So thank you, Aaron.
My pleasure.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.
I love talking to guys like him. His vocabulary is just so on point. And this Mas Grand Plagnon has been a constant over deliverer. And we've been rolling through the vintages. In fact, we never did actually get any 18. They took such a big position on 17 because it was so loved that by the time they sold everything that they got from 17, the next available vintage was the 19. And the 19, I think it does exactly what it's supposed to do. And I like the comment somebody said, it's a little bit more of a baked fruit. And I think that's a good way to think of it. It's got this kind of mocha, chocolatey, dark chocolate, kind of even in the mouth feel. And a lot of baking spices, a lot of herbs, a lot of wonderful nuances. And for a wine of its price, it's hard to have any nuance at its price. So I'm very thrilled to be able to continue to sell this wine at $13.95. Your price will be closer to like $12.50 when you put the discount code in. So have at it. I'm not sure how much longer this price will hold, because there's always the temptation for brands to take price when they can, especially when you've been kind of trapped. As much of the Southern Rhône has been, it's the whole Côte du Rhône category just kind of got shut down here, and this producer broke away from kind of that idea of making Côte du Rhône and started making their own wine, not selling it for a lot of money, but you're actually making more money than if you sell the finished wine to a communal wine like Côte du Rhône. So it's a big effort, and they put a little bit more in the bottle to make it worth it for your investment. So I like it a lot. And with the finish of our second wine, I just want to throw down a couple of quick commercials because, wow, we got busy in a hurry. And this Stars of Pinot is next Wednesday. We are doing this one live at Test Restaurant. If you want to come out and join us, we have a 7 o'clock ticket that's about $85 a ticket. Comes with some nice tray pass foods. We'll have about 15 really nice producers in the room, really top, like hand-selected wines from around the world, New Zealand, Oregon, all over California. William Selliam is coming down, pouring their wines out of Magnum. It's going to be a great gathering and a very good price. So come out and join us at Test Restaurant for Stars of Pinot. This Saturday, got a little fun dinner. A friend of mine has a restaurant called Papille Gustavi, and I love it. It's just a great little hardworking place. He puts so much good quality food out on the table, and he did a little prefix for us. I'm showing 21 wines. 7 of them are from Spain, 7 from Italy, 7 from Greece. We'll pour them 3 at a time. We'll pour them blind. We'll vote which one you like the best. We'll see if you could figure out which one is from Spain, which one's from Italy, which one's from Greece. And I think you're going to get blown away how good the Greek wines have gotten. And I'm pouring really good, respectable wines all across the lineup. And the entire dinner, tax and tip inclusive, is $150. And that has 4 spots left. So if you want to join me Saturday night, go to LearnAboutWine.com and pick up a dinner ticket. Next weekend, Champagne Challenge, 21 champagnes with my friends from Hal and Ray's. They're going to provide us with chicken sandwiches. You don't have to wait 2 hours for Hal and Ray's chicken sandwich anymore. We can have it delivered to us on the spot with some phenomenal champagne, being able to taste across the board, different price points. We go from the Costco $20 version to vintage wines well into the $200, $300, $400 range. I think on this version, we're tasting Dom versus Comte de Champagne versus Krug. And I may be wrong about that wine lineup, but it's always something great at the top end of the scale. And we love doing this. This brings out our most pleasure-driven audience. They just have a blast, and it's a great way to spend a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon. I was thrilled to get a call from Maximilian Riedel. We used to do these events in grand style. In fact, prior to the pandemic, we were talking about trying to set a Guinness Book of World Records challenge for the largest wine tasting event. And we had some ideas. I think those have been put off for at least a decade. But he's coming back to do his wine glass experience. So imagine you bought a box of Riedel glasses, 4 glasses in the set. You're going to get the Sauvignon Blanc, the Chardonnay, the Pinot Noir, the Cabernet. And that box of glasses costs you about, I don't know, $100, 125, 140, whatever the number is. Well, for $89, you get to come do the experience and take a box of those glasses with you. So it's less than a tasting kit to come out and taste with Max, meet him, he and his father. They're legends, and they are Riedel. You got to do it once in your life. And if you have any doubts that glassware matters, you better be there, because they will prove it to you, hook, line, and sinker. And my final mention, our trip to Argentina. We have had a couple of revelations in the last week, a couple of breakthrough appointments. And quite frankly, we have been scrambling because we do a lot of the travel itineraries ourselves, but we found a partner in Argentina that's going to save us a fortune. So we are repackaging the trip to Argentina. It's going to come out with a pretty aggressive price point the next day or two, kind of been able to sharpen the price. And we want to take 10 people with us to Argentina. So if you want to join us, be on the lookout for the next email about the Argentina trip, because I'm pretty sure it's just impossible to do what we're going to be able to do on your own. Can't do it. We travel in great distances. We've got amazing appointments, private chefs coming into the vineyards, and we're staying at amazing properties and meeting the best of the business. So that's Argentina's October 15th for about 10 days, if you want to come. All right, Chris Miller's in the house. He's going to join us live here, and we're going to talk about some Gigondas.
Gigondas.
All right.
So I'm actually joining you from Seattle, Washington, West Seattle to be exact. I did live in LA for about 5 years. I don't know, I can't see anybody, but I was at Mozza, at Pizzeria Mozza, for about a year in 2009 when it was in its heyday. And then I was the Italian wine buyer at K&L over in Hollywood for about 4 years before we came back to the Bay Area, and then eventually moved to Seattle. So I may be a familiar face, but ironically, after all that time with heavily engrossed in all things Italian, I now represent a 100% French portfolio, which is kind of coming full circle. My first supplier job was actually at a company called Wilson Daniels, who many of you probably heard of, an obscure little brand in Burgundy called Domino Rhône Conti. But it is kind of fun to kind of come full circle and to represent such an iconic wine as the main Raspail in Gigondas. My tasting kit actually didn't get here. I sent an email to Ian earlier. It was odd because we're doing a bathroom remodel and the door was open all day long and there were contractors going in and out, but they said it needed an adult signature. So I'll be drinking that tomorrow. But I have a whole bottle of Gigondas from Raspail, so there's no complaints here. I know that I only have about 10 minutes, so I was trying to kind of distill down what I wanted to talk about with this producer. And it's kind of hard to put it in a concise little package. I know we've got some amazing producers from Tavel up to Hermitage, and I think we're in some pretty amazing company. But with that said, I will say I think that this, and I've thought this since I was introduced to this wine 20 plus years ago, that it is, with the possible exception of, well, definitely with the exception of Reyes, it is among the most iconic wines in the entire Southern Rhône. That includes all the heavy hitters from Châteauneuf-du-Pape, any of the kind of co-producers that you find in these other more ancillary appellations. But the Raspail, it's a little difficult to go into the family history because it's extraordinarily convoluted. You get the Napoleonic inheritance laws and marriages of convenience and marriages of strategy, that you end up with the Raspails and the eyes coming together. But it is now headed by a gentleman named Christophe I, who I don't even think is 26 years old. He's now at the helm and carrying on the tradition to make some pretty amazing wines. One thing to note about Gigondas, and I don't know if this was mentioned in the content of the presentation that Ian put together, but Gigondas, the name comes from it's Jacontius, and it means a extraordinarily pleasurable or enjoyable. And Gigondas, the area that we now know as Gigondas, that comes from Latin. It was kind of a retreat for soldiers where they would go on what do they call it in the military? R&R. Where the Roman soldiers would go for R&R, they would go to this Jocontias or whatever it was in Latin, which is now Gigondas in French. And something to another thing to mention about the Gigondas appellation, as it particularly pertains relative to Châteauneuf du Pape, which is, it's often referred to as, the baby Châteauneuf du Pape, or the super Châteauneuf du Pape, super second, is you don't have any of those galets that we just saw. That is kind of one of the most signature attributes, if you will, of the Châteauneuf du Pape appellation, are these galets soils, these galet stones that you find in all the vineyards, extending out into places like Costa d'Argentine, etc. The soils in Gigondas are much different. They're much more limestone based, clay based. I can't see a show of hands, but if anyone's been to the south of France, in Provence, in that eastern part of the southern Rhône, even the western part. The western part is actually the Massif Central. I don't know if you guys are watching the Tour de France these days, but they do a couple stages through there. But that's that massive highlands, French highlands, that takes about 1/6 of the French landmass. The eastern escarpment of that is the western side of the Rhône Valley, and that is all limestone. So you cross over into the Mont Ventoux, also featured in the Tour de France often. That's also limestone. So when you go to, driving up from the south in, more Provence area up into the southern Rhône, the limestone formations are fascinating. They look like, if anyone's ever been to like Vietnam or Thailand, they have these limestone karst formations that obviously the vegetation is different and everything, but it is very dominated by limestone, and that's what you find in the soil types of Gigondas. Another thing is it's higher elevation. Raspail is kind of right in the sort of mid slope area, so they're not the highest, but they're certainly not the lowest. They're kind of in that vein of kind of the mid slope, which, if you want to draw an analogy to Burgundy, that would be where all the Grand Crus are, for example, mid slope. And what makes Raspail very unique is, again, it's a contiguous block, so it's not parcels that they farm separately. It is one contiguous block. The average age is about 45 years, but there are head-trained Grenache vines, own-rooted, that are over 80 years old, that are in the wine that you're tasting today. So 80-year-old Grenache from limestone soils on own-rooted head-trained vines, Grenache vines, just kind of amazing. I believe the Cepage on this is about, in the 19, I think is going to be about 25% Syrah. The remainder is that old vine Grenache.
Yeah.
And I think the AOC is a minimum of about 80 75, more than 75, and then the remainder is Syrah. There's actually not any more veg that's being planted now. There was some more veg historically, but now it is just Grenache and Syrah, predominantly again Grenache. Again, one contiguous vineyard. They were actually very instrumental, the Raspail family. They were just the Raspails then. It was before the part of the family came into it. They were actually extraordinarily instrumental in creating the Gigondas appellation, Gigondas AOC, which was in 1971. Considering Châteauneuf du Pape, which was one of the first AOCs in all of France and by extension all of Europe in the modern era, was 1932, I believe. It is pretty noteworthy that it would become its own appellation, relatively so quickly for what was originally just part of the Côte de Rhône. Just as a quick side note, for those of you who may not know, you have Côte de Rhône. I think there's something like 80 something villages now. If the wine is all from that one village, which is kind of rare, you can affix the name of the village. So it could be Côte de Rhône and the village name. That's originally what you saw with things like Gigondas and Fagaras, Sable, Segare, Rasto, Lirac. But eventually they became their own appellations, their own AOCs. What was interesting too is when they were creating this this AOC in 1971. I mean, imagine like how forward thinking they were. They dictated that the maximum yields had to be less than 35 hectoliters per hectare. That is the same for Grand Cru Burgundy. So again, you look at these other appellations and they can allow up to 60, 70, 80 hectoliters per hectare, and they're 35. So that's again why this wine is so concentrated. Again, the old vines, the kind of perfect part of the perfect aspect and location on the slope. This is all vinified in concrete and then aged in minimum 3,000 liter foudre, some of which are 80 plus years old, the foudre, the giant barrels that they do. Yeah, just an amazing property. Again, I was introduced to this wine long before I have the privilege and the honor to represent it. And I think this 19 is just stunning. I was just presenting this wine in Boise, Idaho. Actually, I cover California, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And I was showing this in Boise, and I was saying that on paper, I wouldn't think I would like this wine. 15% alcohol on the label, from a warm, what they call one of the drought years, the recent string of drought years that they've had in the Rhône, really the whole of southern France. Just the old vine Grenache. I would think it would be too thick and baked and cooked and over the top and not have any freshness or zestiness. But on the contrary, this wine is just, it's that quintessential je ne sais quoi of like taking grapes and making it into something that you can't even, that alchemy of winemaking, whether you're making German Riesling or California Chardonnay or Southern Rhone Grenache based wines, just like the result of what goes in through the viticulture and the careful attention to the vines, and then the very deft touch with the winemaking. This probably is old hat for most of you, but I love to always point out, because some people don't know, there is no such word in French for winemaker. The term that we would use is vigneron, and that means a wine grower. No one makes wine. Wine is grown, and the process of winemaking is called élevage. So, wine is grown and then elevated in France. In Spain, it's even better. It's elaborado. It's elaborated. But again, they don't have this idea of making wine. The wine kind of makes itself. You just gotta kind of guide it a little bit. And I really see that in this wine. It's just, I hope you're all liking it. It's unfortunate I can't see everyone's faces and engage their reactions, but I think this wine is just stunning, and I'm super stoked to be sharing with you guys, and hope you guys are enjoying it.
Super presentation, man. I love your passion for the product, and that you're famous for that. So thank you for sharing with us.
I appreciate that.
The nose, the color, just sensational. And this is not a huge producer, right? We're talking about someone who makes a good amount to get around and people know the wine, but it's not like
including the rosé. It's, I think in a really good year, it's 4,000 cases.
Yeah,
so it's pretty minor. And that's one thing I forgot to point out. They make two wines. They make this wine that you're tasting, and they make a tiny little amount of rosé, and that's it. There's no vineyard designates or no via vine cuvées or anything like that. It's one wine from the one estate. And yeah, this is I was here in fact, I was here about I was back already, but I visited this estate late last June, and it was a pretty memorable experience for sure.
$52.95, and this is for the 19. I'm sure it keeps going up every year, and I'm sure it's heading north of $60 soon. But you know, really a wine. When would you say is the optimal drinking window for this wine? What would you recommend?
You know, I'm glad you asked that question. I failed to mention I work for a company now called Michael Corso. If you look on the, well, actually you don't have the bottles, but on the back, Michael Corso is the. Can you see that? You can't really see it. But that's the importer that I work for now. Michael is that's a story in and of himself. What he's done. He's an amazing guy. He's at a winemaker dinner in Portland, Maine right now. He really wanted to join us actually. And we actually had a discussion when I was there last June. We did a vertical going back to 2005. I think we tasted 10 vintages, starting with the 19, which was the current release, going back to 2005. We skipped a few. He was saying that they used to, when they first started working with the properties, they would do like 30 vintage verticals, but there's just no more library wines anymore because there's just such demand for these older wines. But we had a long discussion about what the optimal age for drinking is. This is aged about 24 months in those foudre, so it's already been aged a little bit before it's even bottled. It's so delicious right out of the gate. It almost doesn't need to age. Of the wines that we tasted, 2010 was my favorite, and then I would have to look at my notes to find out what was after that. It went back to 2005. But to answer your question, I think 8 to 10 years in the better vintages is they don't really need to go much longer than that. They can certainly age much longer, but it's kind of like I think the optimum drinking window for these better vintages is 8 to 10 years.
Cool. We're looking at around $50, 47 or so with the discount that you're going to get. So it's a nice wine to lay down and see what happens in a couple of years. But it is already really showy, and it does change a lot. And Chris, I hope you'll taste it tomorrow. We fill up these little jars all the way to the top. They may leak a little bit,
Yeah.
but they do a great job.
No, I absolutely
showing the wine.
As you know, I'm even though I live in Seattle, I'm still an instructor at the San Francisco Wine School, and David Glancy, the owner of that school, he did an extensive trial of during COVID when they were shipping all these wines. We couldn't have in-person instruction, and if you fill them all the way to the top, they're bulletproof. He actually sent them to New York and had them sent back to him, and then would taste them with a wine that was freshly opened. They don't change. They're, as long as you've got them filled to the top, you can send them all over. We would send them to Mexico. We send them to Canada. It was kind of crazy, but yeah, I will. When I get my samples tomorrow, or my kit tomorrow, I will taste it next to the one that just opened.
Very cool.
Report back.
Thank you for sharing and for pouring it on right there. We really love that, and it's great to see you in action.
Absolutely.
We'll continue with our program and go back into our PowerPoint. And Chris, take a look at the chat box. Lots of comments there about the last wine, maybe some questions too. So if you want to hit Chris up, please do. We're going to Cornas now. We're heading north and hitting into Cornas for a truly exceptional small producer, Domaine Corbis. And here we go.
When we produce our Zoom into Wine videos, we try to work with the best in the business, and we get up at all hours of the night, all hours of the morning to record across the planet with some special guests. And today we are in the northern Rhône with Domaine Corbis, with Laurent Corbis. And he has given us his time to talk about Cornas and the 2020 bottling that we have involved in our Zoom tonight, which is a special bottling of Cornas called La Saborie or Saborite. And if you could correct all my pronunciation, Laurent, I would be very appreciative. Merci beaucoup. Pleasure to meet you.
Pleased to meet you.
For your time today.
Yes, So we can explain at the beginning. Excuse me for my English. At the beginning, just two words on the domain. We work together with my brother Dominic on the domain that is a familial domain. We exist for 400 years in the same area, but we begin to put the wine in bottle in 1980, and I came in the wine world in 1990.
When we produce our Zoom into Wine videos, we try to work
that
with
over. I apologize.
the best in the business.
catch
and
up.
When we get
I
up
don't want
at
to listen to all that
your
again.
time,
We work together with my brother Dominic on the domain that is a familial domain. We exist for 400 years in the same area, but we begin to put the wine in bottle in 1980, and I came in the wine world in 1990 with Dominic, and so we are producer of different wines. We are in Châteaubourg, that is a small village near Cornas, 5 kilometers to the north of Cornas, and we make Saint-Joseph, Cornas, and a little Saint-Péray. But today we speak about Cornas and La Sabarotte, that is a famous wine we have on the domain. La Sabarotte, that is the name of the area, and that is the best, I think, the best wine we do on the domain. It is just Syrah, and that is a parcel was planted at the end of the Second War, so 70 years ago, and the small characteristics that is on Cornas and that is on granitic soils. So the old vines, we can these vines can have water and nutriments, because we have a longer. It is very old, and so we have a longer racines. And all the times, it depends of the vintage, but often we Sabarotte, that is the one more colored in more color in the domain, and very small production. That is very old, so we make just 20-25 hectoliters per hectare, so not a lot of bottles, but we do 3,000 bottles or 4,000 bottles. 2020 is a very good and famous vintage, and it's a bottle we can't forget 10 or 15 years ago, 15 years, but now we have a lot of smooth and a very pleasant noise, and very we can age a long time in mouth. That is the characteristic of Sabarotte, and 2020 is for me one of the best vintage we'll do, because it is very well balanced with acidity and these gourmandise. I think we can do La Sabarotte, that is the name of the area, and that is very a spicy wine. And on the label we can see the village of Cornas, because on the domain will be very careful with the village, with the small area. That is a traditional family, and so we are very interested in the village and in the area of the different wines. We don't, but no, it will be not sacrifice to taste it.
I understand a little soon. Yes, it's a little early to try the great vintage of 2020, but what you want to do is you want to be able to purchase these wines and put them in your cellar and allow them to age. And a wine like this, I was very fortunate to be able to get this wine when it was released, but it quickly sold out. And what I have available is all that there is. And it's a very small production, a very noble wine. And you can see the press is really very, very excited about the future of your brand, also this wine. And here's a picture of you and your brother.
Yeah, it is Dominique on my right, and we work together. I work more in the cellar, and Dominique more in the vine world, and we work for. We began 1990, so for 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So we like a lot Sabarot. It's a wine we must be very careful with, because it is one of the best wine we do on the domain, and so it is we are keen on, and that is a old history, because we begin with this area in 1988. We bought the area, and that is the year when Dominique began to work.
What is the biggest, if you could describe what you're looking for when you're making Cornas, when you're making La Sabarat, what is it that you're working with, that you're trying to allow it to express? What is Cornas basically to you?
So for me, that is a wine you see during the fermentation, that is very interesting, because we have different tanks of Saint Joseph and Cornas. But when we are in Cornas during the fermentation, we see that it's very dark. And just at the beginning, we see the difference, because overseas are red, but Sabarot all the time very concentrated and very rich of color. So Cornas, for me, that is that. And after the more interesting with Sabarot, we have color, we have tannins, but the tannins are not strong, all the times easy, and they are on the mouth, but we have no problem of astringence. So that is very a good wine with a silky wine, and you during the fermentation and the end of fermentation, you see the tannins are in the mouth, but during after they are very silky, and you can keep the wine a long time in mouth. So that is very interesting. I like this wine.
We really thank you for giving us a moment. These special wines, I think it makes an event like what we're doing tonight very special. It's not something you're going to see in a lot of places. You're not, but you will continue to read about this producer and this production for years to come. So keep following this brand, keep following this wine. We have 21 coming, we'll have 22 coming, and we're excited to watch your brand continue to rise. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Awesome. Boy, that's a big wine. That is a big, sturdy, broad-shouldered beast. And I'm just sitting here wondering, what would be the great pairing. And I'm thinking of other wines of this ilk, the size, the structure. And I remember eating A5 Wagyu at Naka and having the kind of the flavor of the flame on the meat and it just melting in my mouth. Really a joyous wine, very hedonistic. And dare I say it's just a big wine. Now, in a tasting order, I struggled. How should I prepare the order of this tasting? Because we have a couple of really extraordinary wines in this lineup, and I'm really pleased with how everything's rolled out up until this point. But you don't necessarily want to go from this one straight into Hermitage because it's another 100% Syrah, and you start to pick which one you like better. And I really, while it's just a natural thing, I like to even ask the question, which one did you prefer? But sometimes it's not fair to say that. There are different moments and unique features, and it's fun to taste them all and to put them in context. So I'm kind of shifting gears by putting the Chateauneuf de Pape next. And to be fair to the Chateauneuf de Pape, we're going from a close to $100 Cornas to a $50 Chateauneuf de Pape. So I'm not being fair to the Chateauneuf de Pape. But I think I'm being fair to your palate. And I think the Chateauneuf de Pape is fresh enough and bright enough to kind of rejuvenate you and get your senses back after such a big and bold and delicious Cornas. Oh, and just to finish on that Cornas, I got one case of that wine. It was such a high demand item, and they probably make 1,000 cases of that wine. They probably send 100 of them to America, and California got like 10. So I got one. It's not really out there, and it's just a really small family operation. It just happens to be a good family that gets press and love every year. So, if you like that wine and you maybe have an optimal meal that you could align it with, think about it. I have about 7 bottles remaining, and that's it. I will be partaking in the 2021 when it comes in, and that's what you got to do in this business. You kind of got to plant your flags, because now that I bought this one, I'm going to qualify for the 21. I might not even get a full case in 21. They might say, oh, you only get 6 bottles because there's less of it. But if I keep that allocation every year, I can keep getting it. And that's where you got to kind of do. You got to plant your flags and pick your partners. I have picked a lot of partners. We just hit a pretty interesting milestone. Our store now has 1,000 wines, and I've been threatened by my wife to not buy any more. So I'm going to keep the SKUs at around 1,000. I'll keep buying, but as we sell things out, also our poor little warehouse is pretty much maxed out. So we want to keep it tight and orderly. But 1,000, can't believe it. I initially sought out to have 100 wines in my store, and that would be it. It's kind of like shoes, just can't stop buying them. All right, we're gonna move into the Vue Telegraph. This is Telegram, and we'll have Andrew again tell us all about this Chateauneuf de Pape.
Now we're returning back to Nantucket. Where Andrew's sitting right now, still on vacation, and here to tell us about our Chateauneuf de Pape offering. Andrew, thank you for sticking with us, and let me get us into our slideshow so that we can talk about this classic. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are here today looking forward to tasting the Vue Telegram 2019. This is just, there are classic wines of the world, and what could be more classic than Chateauneuf de Pape?
Yeah, I mean, thank you again for having me and presenting this wine. I mean, Vue Telegraph is one of the benchmark wineries in all of Chateauneuf de Pape. Very famous, very important. They make some of the best wines in the region. This was started by a gentleman named Hippolyte Brunier, and now the grandsons Henri and Frederick are running it. And in fact, Daniel's son, so great grandson, I think. Nikolai is also
Hey, Ian.
winemaking.
Yeah.
But anyway, it started from just
I can't see the recording on the screen.
Is that for everybody?
I think a couple people, yeah.
I do love you.
Yes, please. Yes.
Why don't I go back and start that again? I apologize.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know. I am enjoying myself a little too much, I guess.
Now we're returning back to Nantucket.
Can see it now?
Where Andrew's sitting right now, still on vacation, and here to tell us about our Chateauneuf de Pape offering. Andrew, thank you for sticking with us, and let me get us into our slideshow so that we can talk about this classic. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are here today looking forward to tasting the Vue Telegram 2019. This is just, there are classic wines of the world, and what could be more classic than Chateauneuf de Pape?
Yeah, I mean, thank you again for having me and presenting this wine. I mean, Vue Telegraph is one of the benchmark wineries in all of Chateauneuf de Pape. Very famous, very important. They make some of the best wines in the region. This was started by a gentleman named Hippolyte Brunier, and now the grandsons Henri and Frederick are running it. And in fact, Daniel's son, so great grandson, I think. Nikolai is also heavily involved in the winemaking. But anyway, it started from Hippolyte was a modest farmer who was literally living off the land and growing his own food and eating it, and was growing grapes and started making wine out of it. And everybody that drank these wines were pretty blown away, and he thought the quality was really, really good. So he just over time, this is in 1898, by the way, is when he founded it. And the neighbors and everybody were loving the wine so much that he just started making more and more wine and kind of expanding this plot. And that plot is now, or was later called Le Creux, which is considered a Grand Cru, or the Grand Cru of the Chateauneuf de Pape region. And so that was their only red wine for a very, very long time, up until 2002. It was a really disastrous vintage, and they decided that they wanted to make something that was a little more less in price, because the Creux asked for more money. And this one they took from the younger vines from the Creux vineyard, and then over time they've added a few surrounding vineyards. It's 80% Grenache, 10% Syrah, 6% Mourvèdre, and 4% Cinsault. And there you have a map of Chateauneuf de Pape, which translates to the Pope's New Castle, or the House of the Pope. But here, what's famous about Chateauneuf de Pape is they have covered in the whole region what's called a gallet roulette, which is basically just a sea of round, like large pebble stones. And where these come from is from glaciers that have moved down the Rhône Valley over a long period of time. They're deposits that have just been left. And then the Rhône River came in, because that is where it runs from where it was cut by glaciers. The Rhône River, just over millennia, has smoothed these stones over time by just running over it. But what's important about these specific stones is that they absorb and hold a lot of heat during the day, and then at nighttime they release that heat right amongst the vines, giving them more warmth, allowing them to ripen even at night. Even though the air outside cools down, there's a lot of heat emanating from these particular stones.
So I want to reiterate what you said earlier about our producer Vu Telegraph. This is like one of the benchmark producers in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and the Lacroix vineyard, which sells, I think the current vintage is about $100 or more. And then this wine made from younger vines and from a classification, second classification off this magnificent set of properties is called Telegram. So that's the difference between the two wines. You've got the Lacroix and you've got Telegram.
And I may have mentioned this earlier, but a lot of the fruit, the vast majority of the fruit comes from the Lacroix vineyard, which is basically a Grand Cru vineyard, along with some from Pinon that Chateau Reyes makes a wine from, and some other surrounding vineyards that are of equal quality.
And here you can see,
Go ahead,
yeah,
sorry.
altitude, but you're not going to get many of the Gallet up here, but but some, right?
Yeah, there is some in some of the even in the Lacroix vineyard is one of the highest, if not the highest, elevated plateau in the region, but there is still a considerable amount of Gallet Relais and in that vineyard for sure.
Like an older picture to the left, but everything in Châteauneuf is hand harvested, right?
Yes.
And you can see the cellar to the right, the large wood with slow wood fermentations and aging in wood. What is a Châteauneuf-du-Pape like this? How much time does it see before it's bottled? Do you know?
You know, it depends on their what they're doing with this one in particular, the Telegram. It spends about 10 months in cement and then 6 months in foeders, and then about another year or so in bottle.
And here's a picture of our bottle again. That Cepage, the blend, 80% Grenache, 10 Syrah, 6 Mourvèdre, 4 Cinsault. And it is made for consumption in the near term, but even with that, 10, 15 years is still considered near term for a wine like this.
Absolutely.
93 points, Jeb Dunnick, a good score, a beautiful wine. I think everyone's going to enjoy. Some of the kind of iconic, nuanced nose characters of this wine. First of all, the color, you kind of get this nice advancement with Grenache not retaining a lot of color. It's not super purple. It starts to show some age. And then you get this really amazing set of aromas that are very unique.
Yeah, this is a kind of wine that the idea of terroir really made sense to me. That it smelled and tasted like it came from a very specific place. Even though I didn't know a lot about that place, there's something different that was happening. And what's great about this wine too is a lot of Châteauneuf-du-Pape's, 10 years, 15 years ago, when Robert Parker was really in love with this area and giving a lot of the wines 100-point scores, upper 90 scores, the alcohol just kept getting higher and higher. And with global warming too, it's really down, especially in this area, is getting hit with an insane amount of heat, a lot more hailstorms actually. But that heat and that Parkerization, a lot of the wines are very high in alcohol. They're very, very big fat wines. But the Brunier family just stuck to their old tradition and their old ways of making more balanced wines and not to follow those trends. And so this one is typically in the 13s and low 14s. I don't have the bottle in front of me to see exactly what it is, but yeah, this one is a lot more accessible when it comes to the alcohol, and yeah, and then it just allows the wine and terroir to shine through even more.
And again, our guests here today are going to be privy to a very good price. You even have a little discount code that we're going to make activate for all of the wines on this program. So even if it says excluded from discount, for one day only, they will not be with that code. So you might want to take advantage and jump all over some of these special prices and take some home with you today. Andrew, thank you so much, man. You're always an awesome guest, to the point, perfectly on top of your Kermit Lynch portfolio. And thank you for a moment from your vacation as well.
Yeah, thanks guys, I appreciate it.
What a man. I really like doing business with him. He's also a winemaker from Santa Barbara and makes a lot of Syrah. So he has a lot of reverence for these wines and references as well. So it's great to talk with Andrew. Our final
Now we're
wine
returning
today,
back.
as we move into our final slides, comes from nothing short of a legend, and his name is Jean-Louis Chave. Our guest that will be speaking about this wine is David Shiverick, and David is the importer of Jean-Louis Chave and a really noted wine expert, and has been in the business for a long time and is really well respected. We recorded with him actually over a year ago, and this video still remains on point in talking about Chave. And this year, when we recorded the video, we were tasting the 2017. We currently have both a little bit of 18 and the 19 wine that we're going to be tasting tonight is in stock and in good supply for me. I've been a big fan of this producer. Everybody that gets into wine starts to pick and starts to have little wine brands that they revere, and I was told to revere this wine many years ago, and I bought some, and I stubbornly put it in my cellar, and I drank every once in a while a bottle, and I thought, okay, it's pretty good. And then about 5 years later, I pulled out a bottle, and it just exploded and changed my world. And so I think Syrah in particular really can blow your mind when it's got the proper amount of bottle age on it. When they're young and you can enjoy them, they're juicy. They're, as we saw today, the Cornas, big and powerful and pretty hedonistic, but you give that wine time in the bottle and it picks up so much personality and character. And it is why I believe it's such an important grape variety. And in fact, at one point in time, the folks in Bordeaux kind of lived in the shadow of these great Syrah-based wines. And the number one wine region in the world back in the 1800s was Hermitage, which is what we're going to taste today. And they would take a bottle of Hermitage and pour it into their Bordeaux, and thus Hermitage their wine. And so the idea of Cabernet or Bordeaux blends with a little Syrah is not new. It's something that they did in Bordeaux in large volume. It did end up, I believe it was after the classification of 1855, people started taking things a lot more seriously, and Syrah disappeared from Bordeaux until recently, when some of the producers started to do some homage blending with some of the famous producers in Hermitage again. And so the kind of the spirit of that idea continues. But let's get into it. Let's get into our last wine. I'm running a little bit long today, and I apologize. but I'm really enjoying the wines. I'm drinking them all, so I'm sorry for leaving you off of the share screen before. And if you have any questions, you can continue to chat me. I'm reading the chats and responding. Here we go with David Shiverick. So Jean-Louis Chave is all amongst the top producers in Hermitage, and makes a number of great wines in and outside of the Hermitage appellation. And I'm going to let you speak about it, because I'm going to not do it justice, and you have so much great content. I only have a couple of slides, and I'm going to get out of the slideshow so we can hear your great stories as we taste the Chave Hermitage.
Okay, I'll do my best. And Chave is his first wine from 1481 was a Saint-Joseph just up the river. So he's a domain that he has the luxury of fruit from 9 different climats. So no one else can do what Chave does in the blending, and that's what he believes in. And so Chave, he makes a blend every year, and he chooses the fruit from the different vineyard sites. It's about a 6-month process. And the wine that you're tasting tonight, Farcanet, is what does not go into the final blend of his, let's say, his big domaine Hermitage. It's still Hermitage in every way. These aren't younger vines or anything like that. It's just wines that didn't fit into what he thought was the conception of that vintage.
And when I look at the hillside, I've seen vineyards organized this way, like in Germany, this kind of single cane training, so that the shadowing and everything, and the wind and everything is and they really train these. This is a lot of work. Very high density too.
This is Hermitage is unique. Saint-Joseph does it too. Not sure if Côte-Rôtie might as well. They've got these chapeaux, they're called. They're long stakes, and there are 2 that cross, and the vines go up that, and you can maybe see. You can see how the vines are going up a stake. Yeah, that's what they're doing. You can't really make out the stakes here, but you can a little bit if you look closely. Yeah. But that's what Hermitage does. That's okay. Now this is Rhône. This is up the valley a little bit on the right bank in Saint-Joseph, and these vines are facing full south, and it is granite, and it's magnificent. And this is the original vineyard of Chave. And Chave, you look at the label, it says, well, what's your label? But it says vigneron from father to son since 1481. There are few legacies like that in wine or in anything, I guess.
And they're all called Jean-Louis.
No, there was one that wasn't.
Oh,
and that's Gerard, who's alive today. He's about 85. That is Jean-Louis' father, and his mother. Gerard was born in the 40s. So his mother said, I'm sick of this Jean-Louis business. I'm going to name our son Gerard. And so she did. And Jean-Louis, and then Gerard named his son Jean-Louis and his daughter Gerardine.
Poor girl.
Yeah. So, and now Jean-Louis, the current Jean-Louis, his son is Jean-Louis, and they call him Louis. And he has a daughter, Emma. And their mother is American. So things are changing there. And
Quickly.
yeah, quickly, right. Well, there's the cellar. They have a beautiful cellar. And They've got a lot of old bottles. And you can sort of see a little bit there. I think there's another layer there. You look at those.
Yeah,
There's a lot of mold in the cellar.
sure.
Mold is good.
Store of time. Look at, it's damn good. And that's what I want to make sure we convey is that, you know, Shav has that Hermitage wine that Mr. Shivrik is showing off, and that's a wine that could sell north of $300 and up.
Absolutely. Yes.
Wow. I can't thank you enough for joining us and sharing some. I feel like we could have done an entire show just on this one area, this one wine.
There's no doubt. And I can go on. You tell me when to shut up.
Well, very fascinating and such an honor to have you and everybody on the Zoom. It's so cool to be able to do this. And I hope you guys get to geek out a little bit like I am, and to be able to share the time with all of you is super fun and super special. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
And that was about a year ago, and I'm glad to see some of the same faces joining us tonight. I'll take off my screen protection here and be able to say hi to everybody. I don't know if I've done that correctly yet or not. I think I've got to remove the spotlight. There we go. Hopefully, some of you have some comments or questions about the wine that we just tasted, but it is a very special wine. And what I love about this wine is I often take it out for dinner, and you take it into a restaurant, and the sommelier, you know, they often are used to people bringing in their big Cabernets and stuff, and they see you bring in something like this, and they're like, oh God, this is the one I would bring, or this is the one I would love to taste, because this is a really beautiful food wine. And having it with a great steak, having it with finer cuisine with lots of different nuances, and it really just continues to take off in a decanter. I'm smelling it today. I get to smell it when I smelt these wines upon opening, and they're, you know, they're wonderful out of the bottle, but just a little bit of time, like I said, in this decanter just takes it up a notch and just kind of unlocked a number of sets of smells and aromas, and that's what a good decantation can do. So with that, I thank you for joining us tonight. I'll stick around and talk to anybody who wants to hang out and talk for a few. But if there are any questions, please, the show is yours now. And we thank you for joining us here tonight. We hope that you'll come back and see us again too. So check out the Zoom into Wine calendar, because there are a lot of really cool Zooms coming. I know in 90-degree heat, the programming better be, and the wines better be frickin' delicious to get you guys to drink some wine on a Wednesday night. Maria, are you new to our group? Have you done this before?
Yes, hi. I think I've done one other. It's just late for me because I'm on the East Coast.
Ah,
So
well, thanks for being a soldier. Appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you. It was very good, very interesting.
Thank you so much. Amy, how was it for you? Good to see your face.
Was great. This was spectacularly curated wines, like every single one. I'm like, I'll take 5 of each. So
All right.
all killer, no filler. It was great.
Love it. I'm going to use that. I appreciate it. Natalie, always great to see you. Thanks so much. Do you have a favorite tonight, Natalie?
I mean, yeah, I would definitely have to say that the Carnasse was my favorite. But you know, honestly, for the price value, I mean, that rosé was pretty spectacular too. So
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Chateauneuf de Pop, I always love the funk. I'm like drawn to the funk. So, you know, I mean, they were all really great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Chateauneuf de Pop is something, you know, you don't always think about pulling it from the wine cellar, But if you put a couple of bottles in there, and this is like $50. It's not expensive for that. I'm not recommending that you've got to spend $50 every day for a bottle of wine, but your friends are coming over for dinner. That's like an easy one and it really takes on so much dimension with food, especially if you have a grill. I love it with food off the fire. Just it's really, really great. Lisa, thanks for joining us tonight in Santa Monica. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Awesome. Any big news yet?
I've extended it a bit. I think I'm finally settled on September 8th.
And will that be the date that you are able to relax, or you got to start picking up your stuff and moving all over the place? This is a retirement date, right, Lisa?
I'm going to call it Rewired because I want to become a sommelier.
All right.
We'll have to talk. And then I have a few conferences planned that I'm presenting, and but I'll start looking at property and start doing all that.
All right, Lisa. Good job.
I'm extending it. That's it. That's final. I'm turning in the paperwork second time tomorrow.
Stephanie and Dave, thanks for joining us tonight. See you. I hope you saw your face in that picture from last year.
Yeah, this was excellent. The rosé was very surprising. When I saw the color, I was like, oh, I'm not sure. And then it was lovely. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, I enjoyed all the wines, but I wasn't sure about the rosé with the color. And then he even mentioned that, like, most of those colors are very sweet, and that's not my favorite. And it was lovely.
Good. Cool. Thank you. Kent.
Hi, Ian.
Yeah. Hey, Brian.
Yeah, I'm the one where UPS lost my wine, so I had to do it dry. But my friends Clyde and Mary gave me real-time updates and descriptions and stuff. But we're up here in Sonoma County in Zinfandel country, so we did the Zinfandel one. So that's how we got into this. So
far out. Well, hopefully they do get your wine there by tomorrow. Has that been updated? Is it coming?
Yeah, they give me a date by 7 o'clock tomorrow night. So we'll see if they make that one.
Please let me know. I hope it gets there okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's never by design that the UPS misses anybody. It's heartbreaking when it happens, but for different reasons, sometimes it does. And if we get a big enough crowd, we'll have a couple of them.
Why do you make it come the day of the event? Couldn't you make it come a day earlier?
Well, actually, we bottle them on Monday, and then we set them out. If we bottle them earlier, we're up against diminishing returns because the quality will start to diminish after second day.
Yeah, so, it sounds like this is geared for people in the LA area where they just get it the next day rather than people further out. Yeah.
I mean, if we'd hate to say that. Natalie has had a couple of shipments issues, and she's out of the state, and we've had some other people. But if you can endure, I think you get it it happens once a year maybe for you. So
okay.
It shouldn't happen.
It sounds like the bottles come earlier if you do the bottle. That's a plug for getting the bottles.
Good, good incentive to do the bottles.
Yeah.
We ship those way in advance, but because we're pouring them live, we don't want to deliver dead wine.
Okay, thanks. Great presentation.
Great. Pleasure. Kent, good to see you with us tonight.
Thank you.
Kent, what's that?
Still working on the job. It's getting better. It's just incredible.
Yeah, incredible. Kent was at our DRC dinner with Stephanie and Dave too, at Mr. Chow, and we've got another one coming up at 71 Above next month, which will take it a little bit more ambitiously towards incredible Burgundy. We've got a couple of DRC Richebourg being shown in this upcoming dinner. So if you want to join us for dinner, that's going to be a spectacular night of Burgundy at 71 Above. That will be August 24th, by the way.
No, Dave said he recognized him, so funny.
Yeah, hi there. Cool, Daniela Thompson, I see you on the Zoom. How are you doing? It's been a while.
Oh my goodness, I'm so grateful to be here with your beautiful audience, and what a great lineup you have. I mean, I just feel like we learned so much. We had such great representation of different parts of the Rhône area and all of the wines in their own merit. Like I could also buy 5 of each, if not, multiple cases. So well done and good job to all the presenters as well. It was really a pleasure.
Thanks. It was great. It's great to see you. How are people treating you at your new position?
I'm not sure yet.
I didn't mention the name of the producer, so you could.
No. Another story. Very, very, intense, but I'm loving it in a lot of ways. So it's a great group and great wines, great team. So I just need more time to kind of just gain some traction. But yeah, you'll see more of me for sure. And I'm going to be on these calls more too, just because I want to learn. I'm trying to get my WSET diploma. So that's my own personal meaning to being here, but I also just want to, get involved. And last but not least, all these events that you have coming up in person are really exciting. So maybe we can just fly down some of the dinners, like that 150 inclusive of wine. Sounds like a Southwest trip for me.
Come on down. We'd love to have you. Yeah, we put them in different places with different price points. Some of the more extreme dinners like we'll do at 71 above get a lot of attention, but you can't do that all the time. Well, I can't do that all the time. I haven't figured out how, but it also, my stomach lining goes away when I push it too hard, because you got to sell every ticket to make any money doing a winemaker dinner. And so we put them out there because they're really fun for us to do. And I don't see the market really kind of changing the way they do winemaker dinners. I like to do it in a pretty different way. And we have, we take 3 glasses, we pour them blind and reveal once you've tasted them and seen what you think is your favorite. And then we talk about them extensively after they're revealed. And it's kind of a fun way to taste and learn and to also kind of gain some perspective on some of the great wines. Well, everybody, I really appreciate you joining us tonight. If anybody else has anything else, I'm here for you. And just love hanging out with you and doing this. It's been part of my life for the last couple of years. We've got Zoom scheduled all the way through the end of the year. There are a couple little breaks in there, like our trip to Argentina, probably 2 or 3 Wednesdays that we're going to be offline. But know that we'll be thinking about you from Argentina. All right. Be well, guys. Thanks so much. Gia, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Cool. Thank you.
Brent, Mary, Brooke, and Rob, thank you so much.
Yes, please.
Did you have favorites tonight, Brooke and Rob?
Yeah, I think the rosé was his favorite. I also really enjoyed that. And then the third one, I'm going to butcher the name, but I really enjoyed that one. I think
Told me 3 times how to pronounce it, and I still
I didn't want to embarrass myself, but I think we'll definitely be purchasing those 2 after this class.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah,
the Cornos was nuts too. I still kind of processing that one. I was like, it kind of distracted me for the last 2. I was still thinking about it. It was really cool.
That Cornos is not only teeth staining, but kind of stains your brain a little bit.
Yeah,
that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Raw spy eye.
Ross by eye. Okay. I need to practice that a few times.
Yeah. Yes. All right, gang. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Go Dodgers. Go Dodgers.
Yep.